My name is Liam McLeod. I'm 22 years old. I'm a landscape photographer from North Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I was born and raised here. I've been shooting for probably 4 to 5 years now, I'd say. My understanding of botany and mycology probably semi-affects, especially if my dad has a geology background. I feel like him raising me and talking to me, telling me if we just went out on a family trip, telling me all about local rock structures or how a glacier is formed, a certain valley, stuff like that. Yeah, I think the North Shore is super conducive, North Vancouver as a whole, kind of to becoming a landscape photographer, videographer, just because we have huge mountains, and then right below, massive old growth forests, and then the sea right there. Pretty much have all three right in one, so accessibility I think has really been a blessing, just having that quick access to nature in almost any form. Even having the 3 local mountains, being able to ski and snowboard, snowshoe, all those things is really, really imperative. I kind of started trail running initially just around the North Shore Mountains and just saw wow, there's some really nice stuff out here, and then pretty much just picked up my dad's old DSLR camera and just threw it in my backpack. And then when I started running, I just started taking photos and then kind of research, just self-research, YouTube videos and tutorials, all the settings, kind of just got more familiar. And the more and more I started shooting, the more and more I got into it, and the more hikes I did, more trips, and kind of more photography focus I got around that. I'd say recently I draw my inspiration a lot more from the minimalism that nature provides. I find that focusing in on one smaller thing as opposed to having a busier frame just kind of guides the viewer's eye a little bit easier, using a longer focal length. I feel in the past year I've really mainly focused on just honing in, as opposed to having a busy landscape, having more focused, refined, just simple, just using more lighting, I think, as opposed to having multiple framing elements. Yeah, about 4 years ago I was diagnosed with a pretty severe headache migraine condition called cluster headaches, or trigeminal neuralgia, and that kind of impacted me pretty strongly. It kind of, I'd say, set me back a little bit. Photography wise, I kind of had to take a break from it. It's one of the most painful conditions known to medical science. And it kind of consists of multiple headache attacks per night, every single solitary night, for the past 4 years. But yeah, I think having photography as an outlet, and having, especially living in Vancouver, North Vancouver, having that easy of an access to nature is pretty therapeutic. It's pretty nice just being able to kind of just call your buddy up, get in the car, go to a trailhead, and access one of the most beautiful places on earth. I think that's pretty beneficial for just not even cluster headaches, but just mental health in general. Having an access to nature like that's pretty crucial, I think. From Kauai, there's a huge almost orchard of really old trees with a straight road through it. It almost reminds me of that whatever Point Vista in California. We've seen those huge trees with the sunbeams coming through. It looks really similar to that. That photo was just crazy because we were driving through on the way back to the airport, and I came across, we were just driving through this tunnel of pretty much huge ancient trees, and just the light that was coming through, I was okay, we have to pull over. And I just got my camera out the back, just had a couple minutes where like cars weren't like went in the middle, lined it up, and then got the shot. That one was pretty, I think, special, especially because we're leaving on the way back to the airport. Like the luck that we drove past that road like multiple times a day, and it was always just overcast or the conditions weren't good. But then right as we were leaving, gotta stop and get it. Yeah, my planning process behind photos usually goes some research. Usually kind of finding, like, judging sort of where a spot was. If I see a photo online that's not geotagged, I'll try to guess kind of where the location is, and sometimes you'll have to do a little bit more research. Try to find like old archives. Sometimes there's old like blog sites and people have like hints to places and stuff, and that leads kind of into maps, looking at like topographic views, seeing like latitude, elevation. And yeah, I've come across some pretty special spots like that, like this waterfall in Hawaii I went to. Took a lot of planning. There's like no information in it, like completely off the beaten path. Like no one really knows about it at all. It's probably like only like locals, and probably for good reason, because it would be really popular if it wasn't. But yeah, it took a lot of research, and we had to pretty much like hike like knee deep up this river, but when we finally got there, it was insane. It was this huge towering waterfall that came down, and we were the only ones there. We didn't see a single other person on the hike the whole day, so definitely the research paid off. For me, it's kind of always just been a side hobby, passion. Yeah, it's never really been about a career. It's more just been a creative outlet and kind of an extension of hiking and backpacking and seeing all these beautiful places. It's almost like the photography is like secondary to that, but I think it supplements it really well. I think they obviously go hand in hand, especially landscape photography. And living here, having that beautiful landscapes, being able to hike out and see those things, photography is just an awesome tool to be able to capture some of that beauty and share it with people. I've been able to get to some pretty cool places, much all over Western Canada and almost all the United States. Went on like a 8,000 kilometer road trip, almost all the way down to the border of the states. Went through, I think, 7 or 8 national parks, went to 12 state parks, just all on one trip, just all through tenting, backpacking. Yeah, I went through Grand Canyon. It was probably one of the highlights. If you've never been, I highly recommend it. It's absolutely insane seeing it in real life, just the expansiveness of it all. But yeah, Zion National Park was another one that really stood out. Crater Lake National Park in Oregon. Yeah, even Olympic National Park. It's just so close to us. It's just like right over the other side of the border, but I feel like no one really talks about it. It's kind of discreet, but it's just so nice in that area. Yeah. Single nicest view in all of BC is Assiniboine Provincial Park. I think just that landscape of having 2 huge towering mountains in the back, and then a lake separated by just a thin little forest in the middle, and a lake on the other side. That one singular view, I think, has to be one of the top in all of British Columbia. Yeah, it's pretty insane. What I'd recommend to someone looking to get into photography is to first, don't feel intimidated by any big camera. You can kind of pick up any camera. I started with an old, cheap, entry-level DSR, and that works just fine. Like, it's really solid. You can do quite impressive work if you really know how to use it. And that kind of ties into my second point of learning manual mode, I think, is really crucial. Photography is essentially just based all around light, kind of controlling light. And then once you see that light, changing the settings in your cameras to adapt to that light is really, really imperative. And you kind of have to know on the spot when you're there. Sometimes you don't have time to look up stuff, but that kind of comes with experience. Like, say there's a perfect sunrise coming right off a nice reflection, you kind of quickly have to find, and you kind of have to know with experience, those perfect settings, so you can go straight to shooting. You don't have to fumble around a bit. So I think learning manual mode on a camera is a really, really good skill to kind of have when you're learning photography. And I think it helps you learn kind of the importance that lighting has on your shots and the end product. Yeah, I'd say another important thing when you become a bit more experienced is kind of to develop your own style. I think that's pretty important. I think it's good when someone sees a photo but they don't know it's yours, but they're able to recognize that it's yours. So like, oh, that's that person's photo. I think that's a pretty powerful statement, because you kind of have your mark as an artist then. But developing that style is a bit more intricate, a bit more tricky, and takes time. It's kind of complex. Your style will constantly evolve. I think I still haven't found kind of the exact style to end on. I think everyone kind of fine tunes. Of course, like, my style from when I started is drastically different. My photos like nothing alike. But my photos from a year ago, look much more similar, just a little bit different, a little bit more refined. But yeah, there's kind of always a direction you want to go, and then when you reach that direction, you kind of want to go to a new place, and you kind of keep on refining, tweaking, until you kind of finally hit that right spot you think that's good for you. Yeah. Through my photography and my love of nature is kind of tied to my love of ecology and conservation. I think it's really important that, especially now during COVID, more and more people going into the backcountry, that they kind of respect it and show the respect it deserves, because it's quite a unique place, and everyone shares the outdoors. No one owns it. So I think it's pretty crucial to, not disrespect places, amazing places that we're very, very fortunate to call our own here in Canada. We have some of the most nicest parks in the whole world. And to see a high traffic is really good, seeing that many people get out. But I think it's good to kind of teach people the importance of to respect the land, because I think it's respect that it truly deserves, yeah.